Welcome to this English Masterclass. You are going to learn phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions to help you sound like a native. You'll learn how to speak fast and pronounce all your new vocabulary just like a native. And this will help you understand fast-speaking natives as well. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Here's how this masterclass will work. You'll listen to a sentence 3 times and you need to write down exactly what you hear. And after, you'll learn how to use the expression just like a native. Let's get started with the first listening exercise.
Claire, let's get a move on. Claire, let's get a move on. Claire, let's get a move on.
So, how did you do with that clip? Did it sound fast? He said, Claire, let's get a move on. First, let's talk about let's. This is a contraction of let us. Let's. Native speakers always say let's. And this is the imperative verb tense, which is used for orders or instructions. So this is given as an instruction. Let's get a. Now, native speakers, it sounds like we speak fast because we take individual words, we don't add pauses, and we pronounce them as one word. Get a sounds like getta. Move on, you have the on move. Now on is a vowel, so we can transfer that sound and we can say these two like one word. Move on, move on. Now, what does this mean? Let's get a move on. This is an idiom and it means to begin moving faster or quickly. It's the same as saying hurry or hurry up. You could say to your friend, the movie starts in less than 1 hour. Let's get a move on. Let's hurry. Let's move faster. Or you can say, if we're going to finish the project on time, we need to get a move on. So now you know how to combine your sounds so you can speak faster and you know what this expression means. So it's your turn to practice. I want you to imitate my pronunciation and I want you to say it out loud and I'll say it 3 times. Let's get a move on. Let's get a move on. Let's get a move on.
Claire, let's get a move on.
Let's get a move on.
Let's get a move on.
Let's try this again. I'll play the clip 3 times.
Just give me a shout when you're done. Just give me a shout when you're done. Just give me a shout when you're done.
How'd you do with this one? Just give me a shout when you're done. Let's talk about how to combine those sounds together. Give me. Do you know what a native speaker says? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Now, we can also take that article a and add it and say gimmea, gimmea, gimmea. Native speakers also reduce sounds, so we say them very unstressed. So instead of saying your, which is very stressed, I need to open my mouth wide, your, I can just say your. And the sound is unstressed, it's more in my throat, your. Now let's talk about what this means. Give me a shout. What does this mean? Maybe you know what the verb to shout, which means to shout, but what about a shout as a noun? Well, this simply means call me because a shout is a phone call. So give me a shout is the same as saying call me. So if I'm leaving the house or the office, I could say to the people there, give me a shout if you need anything. I'm leaving, but call me if you need anything. Give me a shout. This is commonly used with a when clause. Give me a shout when you land. So notice when plus present simple, when you land. Give me a shout when you land. Call me when you land. In this case, it was give me a shout when you're done. You are done. So to be done, this means to be finished. So this means the task is complete. I could text you or give you a shout and say, I'm done with the report. I'm finished with the report. The report is complete. I could also say I'm done working on the report. So notice you need your gerund verb. I'm done working on the report. Or I could simply say I'm done. So now it's your turn to practice. I'll say it 3 times and I want you to repeat it out loud. Just give me a shout when you're done. Just give me a shout when you're done. Just give me a shout when you're done.
Just give me a shout when you're done.
So if he pops out, give me a shout.
I'll give you a shout when we're done.
Let's try this again. I'll play the clip 3 times.
Sorry, give me a sec. Sorry, give me a sec. Sorry, give me a sec.
How'd you do with this one? I'm sorry, give me a sec. This should have been easy for you because you just learned give me, gimme, and give me a, gimme a, gimme a. Now, what does sec mean? Give me a sec? What's a sec? It is short for second. We take the word second and we shorten it to sec. Notice that K sound, sec. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. We use this to say, give me a short period of time. So that might be a few seconds, or it could also be a few minutes. I could say, give me a sec to find your file. And then I take, hopefully, just 3 to 5, maybe 10 seconds to find your file. And you're waiting. Give me a sec to find your file. This is commonly used to get someone's attention and to ask if they have time right now. So you could knock on my door and say, Jennifer, do you have a sec? So you're asking me, do you have a few minutes? Do you have a few seconds? Do you have a sec? Or maybe you could text your colleague and say, where are you? The meeting started 5 minutes ago. And then you reply back and say, I'll be there in a sec. I'll be there in a short period of time. Now it's your turn to practice this one. I'll say it 3 times. I'm sorry, give me a sec. I'm sorry, give me a sec. I'm sorry, give me a sec.
Sorry, give me a sec.
Do you have a sec?
I'll be there in a sec.
Let's try this one more time. I'll play the clip 3 times.
I still haven't figured it out. I still haven't figured it out. I still haven't figured it out.
Did this one sound fast to you? It was pretty fast. He said, and I still haven't figured it out. Again, it sounds fast because we're taking individual words and combining them together. Figured it out sounds like figured it out. So you need to take the end sound from one word and transfer it to the next. Figured it out. And then it has to sound like one word. Figured it out. Figured it out. Figured it out. Figured it out. To figure something out, most students know what this means. It means to understand or solve something. As a question, I could ask you, have you figured it out? Now I can also add yet. Have you figured it out yet? This is in the present perfect verb tense. So if you use he or she as the subject, you need to change have to has. Has he, has she figured it out yet? To reply positively, you can say, I have figured it out. You can add already. I have already figured it out. And then for he or she has already figured it out. When you reply positively, this is a completed past action, but there's a result in the present. So maybe the result is, so now the client won't fire us because I've figured it out. I've solved the issue or the problem. But in the clip, it was negative. I haven't figured it out. And then you can add yet at the end. For he or she, you need hasn't, which is the contraction. He hasn't figured it out yet. This shows that it's an ongoing process. You're still trying to figure it out. But did you notice that the speaker said, I still haven't figured it out? So the speaker didn't use yet, they used still. And notice that placement. It's subject, I, still, and then haven't, or if it's he or she, he still hasn't figured it out. Using still instead of yet, it emphasizes that it's ongoing. And it also emphasizes the difficulty of the task. So it sounds like he's struggling with this. You might say, we've been working on this bug for hours and we still haven't figured it out. So it really emphasizes the struggle. I could reply back and say, okay, give me a shout when you figure it out. Because remember, you need the present simple after that when statement. Give me a shout when you figure it out. Or I could be less patient and put pressure on this person and say, well, let's get a move on. The client will be here in an hour. Now it's your turn to practice. I'll say it 3 times and you need to repeat after me. I still haven't figured it out. I still haven't figured it out. I still haven't figured it out.
I still haven't figured it out.
If you haven't figured it out yet.
No one's figured it out yet.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. It was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk. Did you get this one? I said it was a cakewalk. Let's talk about was a. You can combine these together and it sounds like was za. So notice I'm linking the sounds and I'm taking that was, but it's a z, it's a voiced sound. So I'm going to transfer that sound to a. So you hear za, was a. It was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk.
This thing was a cakewalk, right?
What does this mean to be a cakewalk? This means that something is simple or effortless. You might be familiar with the idiom to be a piece of cake. When you describe something as a piece of cake, it means simple or effortless. This is the same idiom, it's just slightly changing it to be a cakewalk.
Piece of cake.
Hopefully, you would say learning English becomes a cakewalk when you have a great teacher. If you agree, then put cakewalk, put cakewalk in the comments. Remember that you have to conjugate your verb to be with the subject and the time reference. This was a cakewalk in the past simple. This is a cakewalk in the present simple. This will be a cakewalk in which verb tense? The future simple. And this has been a cakewalk. Which verb tense? The present perfect. And also remember the article. It's always a cakewalk. This was a cakewalk. Let's try this again, a little more advanced. I'll say it 3 times. It's a Band-Aid fix. It's a Band-Aid fix. It's a Band-Aid fix. Did you hear this one? I said it's a Band-Aid fix. Of course, it's is our contraction of it is, it's. Band-Aid is 2 words, but to pronounce them like one, I'll take that D and transfer it to the vowel. Band-Aid, dade, Band-Aid, Band-Aid, Band-Aid fix. A Band-Aid fix is a temporary solution to a problem. To understand this expression, you need to know what a Band-Aid is. This is a Band-Aid. This is the brand name for bandage, but the brand name is Band-Aid, and native speakers just refer to bandages as Band-Aids.
I put Band-Aids on it, but...
Remember, this means a temporary solution to a problem. You could say, filling the potholes is a Band-Aid fix. This entire road needs to be repaved.
But it's just a Band-Aid fix.
Now, there are many temporary solutions to help you improve your English, but not all of them are permanent. For example, relying on ChatGPT to write for you is a Band-Aid fix. Remember the article, our noun is a fix, and then Band-Aid is an adjective, a Band-Aid fix. And although a Band-Aid fix means a temporary solution, you can't say a Band-Aid solution. You must always say a Band-Aid fix because that's the word choice in this expression. Let's try this again, a little more difficult. I'll say it 3 times. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't rest on your laurels. Did you get this one? I said you can't rest on your laurels. Native speakers often pronounce T as a flap T, which means we don't push out that puff of air because it forces us to take a pause. You can't. So I don't say you can't. I say you can't. You can't rest on. So here you hear that T because I'm linking the 2 words together and I'm transferring the T sound onto the vowel. Rest on, rest on, rest on. Your is pronounced in spoken English as an unstressed your. You can't rest on your laurels. This could be a hard word to pronounce depending on your native language because we have an R and an L. Laurels. So divide the sounds until you're comfortable with each sound. Laurels. And then you can pronounce it as one. Laurels. The expression is to rest on your laurels. We use this to say that you shouldn't become too comfortable or stagnant with past achievements, past successes. You should set new goals. You should push yourself further. You shouldn't rest on your laurels. For example, the author wrote an international bestseller, but then rested on her laurels. So she had a past accomplishment, past success with this international bestseller that she wrote, but because she rested on her laurels, it means that she didn't set new goals, she didn't push herself further, so she didn't write anything after that international bestseller. She just remained successful based on her past success, but didn't achieve any new success. Let's think about this in a language learning context. Maybe you have a past success with a high score on an exam. It's amazing that you got a band 9 on your IELTS last year, but you can't just rest on your laurels. So this sounds like after your amazing accomplishment, your band 9, you stopped trying to improve. You stopped trying to improve even more. You just rested on your laurels. You had that past success and you thought you were done with language learning, which of course isn't the case. So to help motivate this friend who's resting on their laurels, you can say, subscribe to JForrest English and keep improving, keep learning, keep growing. Don't rest on your laurels. Let's try this one more time, the most advanced listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. I'm going out for a bit. I'm going out for a bit. I'm going out for a bit. Did you get this one? I said, I'm going out for a bit. Of course, I'm is our contraction of I am, I'm. I'm going out. Again, we have that flap T because I'm not going to say out. I'm going out. I'm going out. Now, many native speakers will combine all 3 of these together and they'll pronounce for as more of an unstressed fur. For a bit, for a bit. And again, that flat T on bit, because I'm not saying bit, for a bit, for a bit. You can still link them together even if you say for, or a native speaker commonly says for a bit, for a bit. Now, sometimes native speakers will pronounce the T in this case because it's at the end of a sentence. There's a period. So we have to take a pause anyway. For a bit, for a bit.
I'm going out for a bit.
To go out, this means to temporarily leave your current location, most commonly your home. For a bit is a time reference and it means for a small amount of time.
Sorry, guys. I have to go out for a bit.
This is a common way that someone will say they're leaving. I'm going out for a bit. Now, where are they going? Well, remember, it's more of a they're going out temporarily. So perhaps they're going to run errands, go grocery shopping, meet a friend, or go to the movies, any small amount of time. We also commonly use this as a suggestion to say, let's leave the house and do something more interesting. We've been watching Netflix all day. Let's go out. Let's go out for a bit.
Let's go out tonight.
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice these pronunciation changes and practice fast English. So I'll say each sentence again 3 times. And after each sentence, I want you to repeat the sentence out loud. Here we go. It was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk. It's a Band-Aid fix. It's a Band-Aid fix. It's a Band-Aid fix. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't rest on your laurels. I'm going out for a bit. I'm going out for a bit. I'm going out for a bit. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. It's not a big deal at all. It's not a big deal at all. It's not a big deal at all. Did you get this one? I said it's not a big deal at all. It's a contraction of it is. Not a, we can combine these together, but notice we have a T between 2 vowels. So a native speaker is going to pronounce that as a soft D and say nada, nada. It's nada, it's nada. Big deal. And then we can do the same with at, with that T, and then all. I can put them together and then I'll pronounce that T as a soft D and it sounds like at all, at all, at all, at all. It's not a big deal at all. Let's talk about what this means, to be a big deal. This describes something that's important, serious, or significant. We use this in both positive and negative situations. For example, when you do something and the consequences are serious in a bad way. Getting caught plagiarizing is a big deal. You could be expelled. So here the consequences are serious in a negative way. You could be expelled, which means permanently removed from your school.
Is that big of a deal?
Yes, it's a big deal.
But we also use this in a positive way. Getting a promotion is a big deal. You can finally buy a house. So here, the promotion is important and significant for the impact it will have on your life. It's a big deal.
No big deal. It's a huge deal.
Now remember, our example was in the negative. It's not a big deal at all. So we can use this in two ways. First, to say that something isn't serious, significant, or important. For example, missing the party isn't a big deal. Your friend will understand. So the consequence of that action, missing the party, isn't very important or significant or serious.
It's really not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
Now we also use this as a reply when someone offers appreciation or their thanks for something we did. Your friend could say, thanks for agreeing to help me move this weekend. I really appreciate it. And you can reply back and say, it's not a big deal at all. I'm happy to help. Now, if you want to sound really American and casual, you can reduce that entire sentence to two words, no biggie, no biggie. So no biggie represents it's not a big deal, no biggie.
Aw, no biggie.
It's really common with native speakers in a casual, informal way. So I could show my appreciation to you and say thank you so much for liking this video and subscribing. Don't forget to do those two things. And then you can reply back and say, no biggie, no biggie. It's not a big deal at all. I'm happy to. So put that in the comments. No biggie, no biggie, no biggie. Put that in the comments. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. So what are you into? So what are you into? So what are you into? I said, so what are you into? What are can combine together, and that are can sound very reduced. Water, water, what-er. So in what are, water. Water. So basically, I'm forming a contraction in spoken English, although this does not exist as a contraction, is what we do in spoken English. So water, you can become more of an unstressed ya or ya, almost identical in pronunciation. Water, ya, into. So you can take into and change it to into. I didn't do that personally, but many native speakers do. So be prepared to hear to as ta. So what are you into? What are you into? This is a casual way to ask someone about their interests or preferences. So definitely add this to your vocabulary. It will help you sound like a native American speaker.
So what exactly are you into, Jesse?
To reply, you can say I'm, to be into, I am, I'm into, plus a noun. I'm into music, art, yoga, photography, hiking, biking, or whatever other activity that you're into. It's also very common to answer what are you into just with a verb of preference and simply say, I like music, I love yoga, I adore photography, or whatever your interest or preference is.
So, what are you into?
What about you, Sleeveless? What are you into?
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. Can we play it by ear? Can we play it by ear? Can we play it by ear? Did you get this one? I said, can we play it by ear? Can is an auxiliary verb. It's there to ask the question. When it's an auxiliary verb, we pronounce it as kin, unstressed, because the main verb is what you hear, play. Can you play? Can you play? We can combine play and it together. I'll take that Y and I'll use it to connect. Play it, play it, play it. But you say it as one word. Can we play it by ear? Do you know what this means? When you play something by ear, it means that you make decisions as they happen rather than planning in advance. If your friend or spouse asks you, what should we do this weekend? And you don't want to make plans. You just want to decide as it's happening. So you wait until dinner to decide what you're going to have for dinner rather than planning it in advance the day before. You can say, let's just play it by ear. Let's just play it by ear.
You're right. Let's play it by ear.
Or someone asks, what are you going to do on vacation? Because they know you have a vacation planned. You can reply back and say, we have a few tours planned and we'll play the rest by ear. The rest being the rest of your vacation. We'll play the rest by ear. We'll decide what we want to do in the moment based on how we feel, based on where we are, based on the situation, rather than deciding in advance. What about you? When you're planning a vacation, do you prefer to have a full itinerary, which means every day, all the activities you're going to do on that day are decided in advance? That's a full itinerary. Or do you prefer to play it by ear? No plans. You're just going to decide what to do based on how you feel. Or perhaps number 3, a little bit of both. So put in the comments your preference 1, 2, or 3. As for me, I would probably choose number 2, just to play it by ear. I like being more spontaneous, but my husband Kevin, he is definitely a full itinerary person, which I learned the first time we planned a vacation together. So now we do number 3, we do a little bit of both, so we both are satisfied. What about you? Share yours in the comments.
I don't know. Play it by ear. Why?
Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. Turns out I bought a knockoff. Turns out I bought a knockoff. Turns out I bought a knockoff. Did you get this one? Maybe a little more challenging. I said, turns out I bought a knockoff. Turns out, I can combine those together and it sounds like turns out. So I'm using that S to glide to the next word, but I say it as one word, turns out. Turns out I bought a, so bought is pronounced bought. So I can combine those together, boughta. Just like got a, native speakers commonly say gotta. Well, you can do the same thing with boughta. Knock, the K is silent, and off, because they go together, knock off, it's one word, I'm going to use that knock off, cough. So I'm going to pronounce the final K on knock, and I'm going to pronounce it on off, knock off, knock off. Let's talk about what this means. Turns out, to turn out, this is an extremely common phrasal verb and is used in many expressions in daily speech. So definitely add it to your vocabulary. In this context, turns out is used to say that something is surprising or unexpected. So I did not expect this situation.
Turns out it was spam!
So let's say you were supposed to work late tonight and you knew about this last week. You've planned your entire week to work late today. You've made plans and arrangements, but then your boss says, oh, actually, you don't have to work late tonight. We finished the project. So you can say, oh, turns out I don't have to work late tonight, because it's unexpected, it's surprising, it's not what you thought. Turns out. Grammatically, there should be a subject here. It turns out I don't have to work late tonight. But this is called a dummy subject in English, where the subject it doesn't actually represent anything, it's just the existence, the situation. Because it's a dummy subject, in spoken English, we often drop it and just say, turns out I don't have to work late tonight. But in written English, a subject is required grammatically. Let's talk about a knockoff. What is this? Because turns out I bought a knockoff. What's a knockoff? A knockoff is a copy or an imitation of something, usually a product or service. Knockoffs are very common with designer brands. So the original is a Louis Vuitton handbag, which has a very distinct look to it. But there are a lot of knockoffs. They're fake. They're fake Louis Vuittons. And from a distance, you probably can't tell at all. But when you examine the quality of the material, it's very obvious. So in this situation, maybe it's my friend bought a Louis Vuitton, but turns out it was a knockoff.
Are these designer or knockoff?
Can't you just buy another knockoff?
That's actually a cubic zirconian knockoff.
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice all of these pronunciation changes that take place in spoken English. I'll say each sentence again 3 times, and after I say the sentence, I want you to repeat the sentence out loud and imitate my pronunciation. Here we go. It's not a big deal at all. It's not a big deal at all. It's not a big deal at all. So what are you into? So what are you into? So what are you into? Can we play it by ear? Can we play it by ear? Can we play it by ear? Turns out I bought a knockoff. Turns out I bought a knockoff. Turns out I bought a knockoff. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. Our first listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. Thanks for your help, you rock. Thanks for your help, you rock. Thanks for your help, you rock. Did you get this one? I said, thanks for your help, you rock. Very easy, right? At a natural pace, native speakers, we reduce sound. So for becomes fur. Thanks for. Your becomes your. Thanks for your. Thanks for your help. Your help. Thanks for your help. Now let's review a common mistake that I hear beginner students make and sometimes even advanced students. You can say thank you or thanks. You cannot say thanks you or thank. And notice in our example, we have thanks for your help. Thanks for your help. What is your help? This is a noun. So we have thanks for plus noun. You can also use thanks for plus gerund because for is a preposition. So what would thanks for your help be in the gerund form? Do you know? Thanks for helping me. Thanks for your help. Thanks for helping me. And you rock, this is a very natural way to say you're great, you're awesome. I use this in the comment section to reply to your lovely comments all the time. But don't say you are rock. It is not to be rock, it is to rock. You rock, you're awesome, you're really great, you rock. Put that in the comments. You rock, you rock.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks for helping me.
Thanks, Billy. You rock.
You rock.
Thanks, honey.
Let's try this again, a little more difficult. I'll say it 3 times. She's starting to rub off on you. She's starting to rub off on you. She's starting to rub off on you. Did you get this one? I said she's starting to rub off on you. She's is our contraction. She is, she's. She's starting to. So instead of to, you can use an unstressed to. She's starting to rub off. Because rub off is a phrasal verb, they go together. I can take that B sound and connect it to the next word, but I have to combine them together. I have to say them as one word. Rub off, boff, rub off, rub off. I can also take that on and add it together. So I'm saying those 3 words as one. Rub off on. So here I'm taking the F from off and I'm adding it to on. Fawn. Rub off on. Rub off on. Rub off on you. What does this mean? To rub off on someone is when someone's behavior or personality affects someone else. Let's take Janice, and let's say Janice loves helping other people. Now let's say Fernando spends a week working with Janice, and now Fernando starts helping other people. You could say Janice rubbed off on Fernando. Here we have it in the past simple, rubbed off on. Janice rubbed off on Fernando. Now you could also take the specific personality trait or characteristic, in this case, Janice's helpfulness, which is a noun. Janice's helpfulness, because the helpfulness belongs to Janice, so it's possessive. Janice's helpfulness rubbed off on Fernando. So that specific character trait of Janice transferred to Fernando because they spent time together.
Marcus is really rubbing off on you.
Finally, I'm rubbing off on you.
My deviousness has finally rubbed off on you.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. He rubs me the wrong way. He rubs me the wrong way. He rubs me the wrong way. Did you get this one? I said, he rubs me the wrong way. Notice this expression uses the verb to rub, and our last expression used the verb to rub, but they have completely different meanings. And that's why this is a more advanced listening exercise, because maybe you understood the words, but you don't know what this means. To rub someone the wrong way. This is to annoy someone, but without intending to. Remember Janice from our last example, and she was very helpful, but maybe for some reason, she just rubs you the wrong way. She annoys you, but there's nothing that she does to annoy you, just maybe your personalities clash. They don't go together. So if you're planning a social gathering, you might say, is it okay if we don't invite Janice? She rubs me the wrong way. Now, an entire person like poor Janice can rub you the wrong way, but it also could be something specific that someone said or did. And overall, you like Janice, but just that one thing she said or did rubbed you the wrong way. For example, your comment just rubbed me the wrong way. So maybe she said something in a meeting that really annoyed you, but you know she did not intend to annoy you. So here, your comment, this is a noun. Your comment rubbed the past simple of the verb to rub, and notice that soft D, rubbed me the wrong way.
Wait, is it me? But do I rub you the wrong way?
Not Jay. Guy rubs me the wrong way.
She rubs everyone the wrong way, but Pop.
Our final listening exercise, and the most advanced, I'll say it 3 times. I had a hunch he'd quit. I had a hunch he'd quit. I had a hunch he'd quit. Did you get this one? I said, I had a hunch he'd quit. Notice for pronunciation, I had a. So I combine had a together as one word. I had a hunch he'd quit. Now, did you hear that the he'd quit? Well, that D represents what word? Would. He would quit, he'd quit. He'd quit. Very difficult for students to hear. Native speakers understand it based on context and based on grammatical structure. It would sound awkward without it. So we know it's there even though we can't really hear it either. When you have a hunch is the noun, and then the verb that goes with it is have. So to have a hunch, this is when you think or predict that something is going to happen, but it isn't based on facts, it's based on your intuition, your feeling. So you could say, I have a hunch she'll accept our invitation. Now, if someone replies back and says, why? All you would say is, Because I have a hunch. I have a feeling. I have a gut feeling. And notice the grammar here. I have a hunch. This is the present simple. And then she'll accept. She will accept. That's the future simple. I have a hunch she'll accept our invitation, because you're making a prediction about the future. But you could use this in the past, like our listening exercise. I had a hunch last week in the past, so that's the past simple. Last week, I had a hunch that he would quit. So would is the past simple of the verb will. I had a hunch that he'd quit. And using that is optional. You don't need it. You could simply say, I had a hunch he'd quit.
I had a hunch.
Just a hunch.
I had a hunch, but I wasn't certain.
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice speaking fast just like a native. I'll say each sentence again 3 times, and this time I want you to repeat each sentence out loud. Here we go. Thanks for your help, you rock. Thanks for your help, you rock. Thanks for your help, you rock. She's starting to rub off on you. She's starting to rub off on you. She's starting to rub off on you. He rubs me the wrong way. He rubs me the wrong way. He rubs me the wrong way. I had a hunch he'd quit. I had a hunch he'd quit. I had a hunch he'd quit. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. Are you all set? Are you all set? Are you all set? I said, are you all set? Notice that the you becomes more of an unstressed ya or ya. So it's a very subtle difference, ya, ya. Native speakers will use both, are ya, are ya. Are you all set? And notice I don't push out that T, so set, all set. Now what does this mean, to be all set? This simply means to be ready. So you can use this all the time in your daily speech. So I could ask you, are you ready for your presentation tomorrow? And you can reply back with those 2 words, all set, all set. The full form would be, I am all set, and then you can just reduce that to all set, which means I'm ready for my presentation tomorrow. We commonly use this to confirm that someone is ready to leave. Leave a house, leave a restaurant, leave any location. Are you ready to go? And you can reply back with those 2 words, all set, which means I'm ready to go. All set?
All set?
All set.
Let's try this again, a little more challenging. I'll say it 3 times. My week's off to a rocky start. My week's off to a rocky start. My week's off to a rocky start. Did you get this one? I said my week's off to a rocky start. Notice that contraction, weeks, that is week is. My week is, my week's. My week's off. And instead of saying to a, I can combine those together with a w, to a. So I use that w to glide. To a, to a. My week's off to a rocky start. The reason why this is more difficult is because you may not know the expression. The expression is to be off, to a, and then adjective, start. And in this example, my adjective is rocky. My week's off to a rocky start. Rocky means difficult or uncertain.
He and I got off to a rocky start.
All right, sure. Tonight got off to a weird rocky start.
We often use this adjective rocky to describe relationships. It could be a romantic relationship, a relationship with family or friends, or a relationship with your boss or coworker. Your friend might come to you upset and say, our relationship is a little rocky right now, and she wants your advice. But remember, you can use any adjective with this expression, so hopefully you'll use a positive one. My week's off to an amazing start. And notice, because my adjective starts with a vowel, my article becomes an amazing start.
Off to a great start.
So we're off to a good start.
And you can use this expression as a reply to how's your week going? So why don't you practice this right now? How's your week going? And I want you to put in the comments, my week's off to a adjective start. And you choose the adjective. Put that in the comments. And hopefully it's a positive adjective. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. What do you have on the go today? What do you have on the go today? What do you have on the go today? Did you get this one? I said, what do you have on the go today? Have you heard that native speakers pronounce what do you as what'ya? What'ya? We combine all those sounds together. What'ya? An alternative is whatcha. Whatcha. And I use both of them equally, so it's important that you know both of them as well. And this question is how a native speaker will commonly ask, what are you doing today? So the expression is have on the go. What do you have on the go today? What are you doing today? Now, instead of have on the go, native speakers will also say, what do you have going on? So on the go is one option, going on is another option. What do you have going on today?
Hey girl, what do you got going on today?
So to answer, maybe you could say, today I'm studying JForrest English lessons. Is that what you have going on today? Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. Did you nod off in the presentation too? Did you nod off in the presentation too? Did you nod off in the presentation too? Did you get this one? I said, did you nod off in the presentation too? Native speakers will combine did you and say did you. Did you. So you hear a j sound. Did you. Or we can reduce that to did ya or did ya. So that or So all 3 options are common. Nod off is a phrasal verb, so we'll pronounce it as one word, nod off. So notice I'll take that D sound and I'll connect it on the off, but I have to combine it together. Nod off, nod off, nod off. To nod off, this means that you fall asleep accidentally when you're not supposed to, like during a presentation. So hopefully you're not nodding off during this lesson right now. Or maybe you nodded off on the bus. I nodded off on the bus and missed my stop. Has that ever happened to you? Or maybe you see one of your coworkers nodding off. I think Sarah nodded off. Someone should wake her up before her boss sees her.
Did you just nod off?
I nodded off.
So I nodded off a little.
Nodded off? Ross, you were snoring.
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice your pronunciation. I'm going to say each sentence again, and I want you to repeat the sentence aloud and imitate my pronunciation. Are you all set? Are you all set? Are you all set? My week's off to a rocky start. My week's off to a rocky start. My week's off to a rocky start. What do you have on the go today? What do you have on the go today? What do you have on the go today? Did you nod off in the presentation too? Did you nod off in the presentation too? Did you nod off in the presentation too? Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. Let's get started. I'll say it 3 times. I got a lot on my plate. I got a lot on my plate. I got a lot on my plate. Did you get this one? I said I got a lot on my plate. Now, got native speakers pronounce this as gotta, gotta. I got a lot on my plate. The expression is to have a lot on one's plate. Have you heard this? It's very common. When you have a lot on your plate, it means you're very busy. You have many different tasks to complete. Now notice in my spoken expression, I used got. I got a lot on my plate. I got a lot on my plate. Because native speakers commonly replace have with got in spoken English in a casual, informal way. But in written English or more formal professional English, it's best to use have. So let's see some examples. I could say, give the project to Isabel. Amar already has a lot on his plate. Now, of course, our verb is have, so you need to conjugate it with the subject and time reference. In this case, Amar, third person singular. Amar has in the present simple. And notice, Amar has a lot on his plate because the expression requires a possessive, his plate. We also use this expression to talk about a time we were busy in the past. So you have to conjugate that verb. We had a lot on our plate because the subject is we. So now I need our plate. And then you can use a past simple time reference. Last week with the conference.
I got a lot on my plate right now.
I just got a lot on my plate.
Hey, I got a lot on my plate.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. How'd you do? I said, I'm thinking of taking up sewing. Take up is our phrasal verb. And notice I pronounced it as one, taking up, because the preposition belongs to the verb. Native speakers may drop that taking, that G sound, and it sounds more like taken. But then you have to connect the preposition, taken up. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. You may hear that. And did you get sewing? Because of course the pronunciation is the same as sew. There's no sewing though, adding an ing. So sewing is the activity, but the pronunciation is the same as the word sew. Let's talk about this phrasal verb. When you take up an activity or a hobby, it simply means start. And this is one of the reasons that students, you don't understand native speakers because our vocabularies are filled with phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions like this one. So remember our last expression, I have a lot on my plate. Let's combine these together. I'd love to take up sewing, but I already have so much on my plate at work. Of course, take is a verb, so you need to conjugate it. I could say Max took up guitar last year and he's already amazing. What about you? Are you thinking of taking up? Notice you need that gerund, thinking of taking up. Are you thinking of taking up a new activity or hobby? Share that in the comments below.
We'll take up yoga or jogging or, we'll be organized.
Taking up dressmaking?
Yeah, I am.
Well, Mrs. B and I did take up synchronized swimming.
Let's try a more advanced test. I'll say it 3 times. Have you nailed down the dates yet? Have you nailed down the dates yet? Have you nailed down the dates yet? I said, have you nailed down the dates yet? And the reason why this is more advanced is because I'm using an expression you may not be familiar with. For pronunciation, I said have you, but a lot of native speakers reduce you to just a ya, have ya, have ya nailed. So you might hear that. Now, nailed, notice in the past simple that ed is a very soft D, nailed, nailed. But we have nailed down. So because I have a D sound on down and these two go together, I'll pronounce it as one and you'll only hear one D sound, nailed down, nailed down. So it's pronounced exactly the same as nail down, but if you say it together, that D is used for both. Same with dates yet. Notice how that S blends into the Y for yet, dates yet. And it sounds like one word, dates yet, dates yet. The phrasal verb here is to nail something down. And that's when you firmly establish or confirm something. So just think of it as 100% confirmed. I could say I'm not signing the contract until we nail down the terms. Once the terms are nailed down, they're 100% confirmed. So you can think of them as official. So then I'm comfortable signing the contract. In a more everyday context, you might say, let's nail down our vacation plans by the end of the week. And once your plans are nailed down, they're 100% confirmed, so you can get excited about your vacation. Now notice my question, have you nailed down the dates yet? What verb tense is that? It's the present perfect. And I'm using the present perfect because this is an unfinished timeline. If the person says no, it's still possible for them to nail down the dates, to confirm the dates, because it's unfinished. To reply, you can say no, not yet, because we use yet with the present perfect. No, I haven't nailed down the dates yet. Or you could say, yes, I nailed down the dates, past simple, to show a completed past action. Or you could say, yes, I have nailed down the dates. This is the present perfect. It's a completed past action with a result in the present.
Once we nail down our mission.
I'm just nailing down the specifics.
I'll nail it down this week.
Let's do one more, even more advanced. I'll say it 3 times. You can't dodge his calls forever. You can't dodge his calls forever. You can't dodge his calls forever. Did you get this one? I said you can't dodge his calls forever. Now notice can't. In spoken English, I'm not going to pronounce that hard can't with the T. You can't dodge. Notice here, the D is silent, the middle D, dodge, dodge. Dodge his calls forever. Now, what does dodge mean? To dodge. This is when you purposely avoid or ignore. So he's calling, but I'm not answering. I'm purposely ignoring it. I'm dodging his call. So to you, I might say you can't dodge speaking in public forever. You can't purposely avoid it or ignore the activity. At some point, you just have to do it. Now notice I use dodge speaking because you can dodge something, his call, or you can dodge doing something. So the verb in ing, dodge speaking. We sometimes use this in a more positive way. I might say, great job dodging that question. So maybe you were asked an inappropriate question in an interview or a meeting, but then you strategically avoided answering that question. So I might say, great job dodging that question.
She's dodging calls.
Why have you been dodging my calls?
She's dodging my phone calls.
Now let's do an imitation exercise. I'm going to say each sentence again 3 times, but I'm going to leave enough time for you to repeat the sentence out loud and imitate my pronunciation. Let's do that now. I got a lot on my plate. I got a lot on my plate. I got a lot on my plate. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. I'm thinking of taking up sewing. Have you nailed down the dates yet? Have you nailed down the dates yet? Have you nailed down the dates yet? You can't dodge his calls forever. You can't dodge his calls forever. You can't dodge his calls forever. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. Looks like we're back to square one. Looks like we're back to square one. Looks like we're back to square one. I said, looks like we're back to square one. Did you get that one? Let's talk about the pronunciation changes. Notice the contraction were. This is we are as a contraction were. Now notice how unstressed my pronunciation is. It sounds like were, not we're, were. This is how native speakers say it at a natural pace. We're back, we're back, we're back. We're back to, this sounds like t in real English, t. We're back to square one. We're back to square one. Now what does this mean? To be back to square one. Well, square one on a board game is the beginning of a board game. So when you're back to square one, it means you're back to the beginning. And you're back to the beginning, the start, because you tried something and it didn't work. So you had a failed attempt and you have to try again. Looks like we're back to square one. It looks like we have to start again from the beginning because our first attempt failed. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. I said, I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. First, let's talk about don't know. At a natural pace, this sounds like don't know, I don't know, I don't know, don't know, I don't know. I don't know if we can, notice here, we can trust. When can is the auxiliary verb, so it's not the main verb, we reduce this to kin, and it's very unstressed sound. I don't know if we can trust, if we can trust. And notice you hear trust more because it's the main verb, and can, which sounds like kin, is very short, can trust, can trust. I don't know if we can trust her. Now, here we can get rid of that H sound and it just sounds like trust her. But then you combine it to the word before, trust her, trust her, trust her. I don't know if we can trust her. This is a contraction for she is, she's pretty wishy-washy. What does wishy-washy mean? To be wishy-washy, this is when you have no clear or consistent ideas or decisions. We generally use this as an adjective to describe someone who changes their mind, changes the decision that they make frequently. So that's why you don't know if you can trust her. because she says she's going to come to your party or help you move, but because she's wishy-washy, tomorrow she might change her mind and say, oh, actually, I'm not coming to the party, or I'm not going to help you move. But then maybe the next day she changes her mind again and she does come to your party. She's wishy-washy. I don't know if I can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. You gotta give him props. He's a real trooper. You gotta give him props. He's a real trooper. You gotta give him props. He's a real trooper. I said, you got to give him props. He's a real trooper. You got to sounds like gotta. You gotta give him. Same thing we saw with her. Get rid of the H and it will sound like im. But you can combine it to the word before. Give 'em, give 'em, give 'em. You gotta give him props. This is a contraction. He's a real trooper. Now, what does this mean? To give someone props, this is when you give someone respect, credit, or recognition. So let's say a coworker of yours gets a really big client. Well, if you want to give your coworker credit or recognition, you could say, oh, we got to give him props. And then you can celebrate his big achievement. Let's talk about he's a real trooper. When you describe someone as a trooper to be a trooper, this is someone who perseveres through hardship or difficulty. So they persevere, they keep going, they don't give up, they don't quit, they persevere. And this is why you gotta give him props, because he didn't quit, even though it was difficult, because he's a real trooper. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. Our successes and failures were writ large. Our successes and failures were writ large. Our successes and failures were writ large. I said our successes and failures were writ large. Notice our. I did not pronounce this as our. I said R. A very reduced sound. R. Our successes. Our successes. Our successes and failures. Here, and, when and comes between 2 nouns or even 2 verbs, we reduce it to n. Our successes and failures. Coffee and tea, successes and failures. Our successes and failures were writ. Did you spell this starting with a R or with a W? The W is silent, just like in the word write. The W is silent. But in spelling, it's there. In pronunciation, it isn't. Writ large. What does writ large mean? This is an adjective that simply means to be very obvious. So our successes and failures were very obvious. Why is that? Perhaps we work for a public company, and when we fail, the general public knows we failed. But also when we succeed, the general public knows we succeeded because our successes and failures are writ large. They're very obvious. Are you ready for your last listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. With a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. With a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. With a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. I said, with a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. Did you hear that contraction? It'll. It will sounds like it'll. It's a very soft sound. It's easy to miss that will. It'll be. But without it, the sentence wouldn't be grammatically correct. If I said it be, That isn't correct. It will be. It'll be. It'll be good to go. Just like we saw before, to is a reduced sound, an unstressed sound, to. Good to go, to go, to go. Good to go, good to go. What does this mean? With a few tweaks, tweaks are changes, small changes. So let's say you're writing a report and your boss or coworker wants you to remove this section and add this information. That would be a tweak, a tweak. You need to make a small change, a tweak. With a few tweaks, with a few changes, it'll be good to go. When something is good to go, it means it's ready. And we use this in two contexts, ready to leave or ready to start doing something. So let's say you and your friend are going to the movies. Your friend could text you and say, good to go? Are you ready to leave? And in this case, it could be, are you ready to leave your house to meet me at the movies? Good to go? Good to go? We use this a lot as native speakers. In this context, it'll be good to go. Something can also be good to go in the context of it's ready to start doing something. For example, the new website will be good to go on Monday, which means the new website will be ready to start doing something, ready to start receiving visitors, ready to be available to the public. The new website will be good to go on Monday. Now, the new website as a subject is it. So if you already know you're talking about the website, you can say it'll be good to go. Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice these natural pronunciation changes and practice these new expressions. I'll say each sentence again 3 times in a row, and I want you to imitate my pronunciation. Try to say it just like me, get all those pronunciation changes. And I want you to say this out loud. So you can do this as many times as you like to practice. Looks like we're back to square one. Looks like we're back to square one. Looks like we're back to square one. I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. I don't know if we can trust her. She's pretty wishy-washy. You gotta give him props. He's a real trooper. You gotta give him props. He's a real trooper. You gotta give him props. He's a real trooper. Our successes and failures were writ large. Our successes and failures were writ large. Our successes and failures were writ large. With a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. With a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. With a few tweaks, it'll be good to go. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. Did you get this one? I said we need to nip this in the bud. Now let's talk about need. Notice that I didn't pronounce the D, need. Because if I do that, it forces me to take a pause, which slows me down. So if you don't pronounce that D at the end, you'll be able to speak faster. We need to. Notice how to becomes more of an unstressed to. We need to nip this in. So notice here, we have this in, and again, I can connect those together, and I can take that S sound and I can add it to the beginning of in because it begins in a vowel. This sin. And it sounds like one word, this sin. This in the bud.
You need to nip this in the bud.
Now, what does this mean? When you nip something in the bud, it means you stop something before it becomes serious or permanent. And that something that you want to stop is a negative behavior or a problem or some sort of issue. I use this expression with my little kitty, Sasha. When she was just a kitten, she used to scratch at the furniture. Now, obviously, this is a negative behavior that I want to stop. And if I let her keep scratching, then it will become a permanent habit, a permanent behavior. So I needed to nip her scratching in the bud. I needed to nip it in the bud. So maybe there's an issue or a problem that you want to nip in the bud. For my students, I would say you need to nip your fear of public speaking in the bud, which means you need to stop it when it's just a small fear. Because if you let it grow and grow and grow and grow, it's going to be a lot more difficult to overcome. So you need to nip your fear of public speaking in the bud. So if you're with me, put that in the comments. Nip fear in the bud. Nip fear in the bud. Put that in the comments. And I certainly hope that my channel and these lessons help you do that.
I just want to nip any problems in the bud.
Gotta nip this thing in the bud.
Going to nip this thing in the bud.
You need to nip this in the bud.
Let's try this again with another listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Did you hear what I said? I said, don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't is a contraction of do not. Don't. It'll help you speak faster. And again, drop that T so you don't take a pause. Don't blow. Blow is. Blow is. So notice on his, I drop that H and I combine those two together. Don't blow is comment. Out of, you can reduce those into one sound, outa. Don't blow his comment outa proportion.
You're blowing this way out of proportion.
Now let's talk about the meaning here. When you blow something out of proportion, you make an event or a problem seem more serious than it is in reality. So let's say you have a job interview and it's going to be in English. But remember, you nipped fear in the bud, so you're not afraid to speak in public, right? But imagine that you didn't nip fear in the bud and you're stressing and you're anxious and you're nervous, but the event is going to a job interview in English. And you make it seem like this big, terrible, scary event. So you could say, don't blow it out of proportion. Or if you're telling a friend how nervous you are about this job interview, your friend could say to you, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Now notice here I added way out of proportion. It's very common to add way to make it sound stronger, so to emphasize it.
You're blowing this way out of proportion.
Blow it way out of proportion.
You're blowing this way out of proportion.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. How'd you do with this one? I said, my client really chewed me out. Now let's talk about chewed. Notice this is an ED verb, a past simple verb, but the pronunciation is a soft D. Chewed. Now again, we can drop that sound when we're connecting it to other words so you don't really hear it. My client really chewed me out. And notice how I take me out and I combine them together. Now I use a soft y sound to combine 2 vowels. Me out, yout. So I add a y in front of out, yout. But I combine it with me, so it sounds like one word. Me out, me out. So you don't hear it when you're speaking at a fast pace, but if you slowed it down, you would hear the very slight y in front of out. My client really chewed me out.
Your boss just chewed me out.
The expression is to chew someone out, and this is when you tell someone angrily that they've done something wrong. So this is not a positive thing. Now notice the difference between these sentences. I chewed my assistant out. The client chewed me out. So So notice the difference. In the first one, I chewed my assistant out. I'm giving the angry comments. The second one, my client chewed me out. I'm receiving the angry comments. Now, sometimes my students, maybe even you, sometimes my students chew me out in the comments section. They tell me angrily that I've done something wrong in the video. So please don't chew me out. Put that in the comments. I won't chew you out. I won't chew you out. Please don't chew me out. It's not very pleasant to read negative comments, so don't do it.
Chew me out about something.
More like chewed out. I've been chewed out before.
Wanted me to chew you out.
Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. Did you get this one? I said we're not laying anyone off. Now notice where this is a contraction, we are, and notice how unstressed it is. We're not. Now, as a contraction, you could also say we aren't. So both of those contractions are common. I just chose to use where. We're not laying anyone off. Now notice how I can combine anyone off. Off starts with a vowel, and anyone, it ends on an N sound. So I can take that N and just add it in front of the vowel. Anyone off, anyone off. And it sounds more like one sound. To lay someone off, this is when a company stops employing someone because the company doesn't have the money or the work to employ that person anymore. So your manager or your boss could say to you, sorry, our sales are down, so we have to lay you off. Which means that they don't have the money to keep paying you, so they can't employ you anymore.
Talking about laying people off.
I had to lay him off.
I had to lay off 27 robots.
To lay someone off is the active form. It's the subject doing the action, but it's also very common to use the sentence structure to get laid off or to be laid off. And this is when you are receiving the action. So this is when you lose your job because your company doesn't have the money or the work. And remember, we use get for the transition from not laid off, so employed, to laid off, so the transition from employed to unemployed. That's to get laid off. Now, to be laid off, that's simply talking about your current state. So now you are unemployed.
I wasn't fired from my job, I was laid off.
I got laid off.
Wait, we're gonna get laid off?
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice these pronunciation changes and you can practice speaking fast just like a native speaker. So I'll say each sentence again 3 times, and I want you to repeat the sentence out loud and imitate my pronunciation. Here we go. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. Don't blow his comment out of proportion. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. My client really chewed me out. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. We're not laying anyone off. Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. They've been bickering all day. They've been bickering all day. They've been bickering all day. Did you get this one? I said they've been bickering all day. Let's talk about the pronunciation changes. Notice I have they've. This is a contraction. They have, they've. Native speakers use contractions in spoken English almost 100% of the time. So you need to be very, very comfortable hearing the contraction because it affects the grammar of the sentence. You need to have they have been bickering because that shows the grammar, and the grammar is the present perfect continuous. So if you didn't have that, it would be grammatically incorrect. They've been bickering all day. Now notice I said been, a very unstressed been. This is how we pronounce the past participle of the verb be, been, in American English. I don't speak British English, but I believe in British English they pronounce it more stressed, been, but in American English we don't do that. We just say been. They've been bickering all day. Now, to understand fast English outside of the classroom, you need to hear the individual words, but you also have to understand the meaning of the words. So let's talk about the verb to bicker. This is when you argue about things that are not important. The concept of bickering is extremely common and everyone does it, and we usually do it with people we spend the most time with, our family, our spouses, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, our close friends, our coworkers that we spend a lot of time with. Anytime you spend a lot of time with someone, it's common that you'll bicker. But it's different from fighting, because when you're fighting with someone, usually there's a strong emotion involved, but when you bicker, you don't really have that emotion. It's less serious because the things you're arguing about, fighting about, are not actually important. Like I said, this can be very common in the workplace when you spend a lot of time with your coworkers. So maybe you're in a meeting and you've been discussing an issue for hours with your coworkers. But people start bickering. They start arguing about things that aren't important. You could say, we didn't get anything done today because we bickered all meeting.
We argue? We bicker. Yeah, we bicker.
Either. Yeah, well, we were bickering because they were bickering.
Mark, your kids are bickering.
Let's try this again with another listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. That street's pretty sketchy. That street's pretty sketchy. That street's pretty sketchy. How'd you do with this one? I said, that street's pretty sketchy. Did you hear that streets, the S? Well, that is the verb to be in a contraction form. The street is the streets. The street's pretty sketchy. Again, it's extremely important that you hear these contractions for grammar because we need the verb to be grammatically. The sentence would sound very awkward if you didn't have it because it would be grammatically incorrect. That street's pretty sketchy. Sketchy, 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 sketchy. Let's talk about to be sketchy. That street is our verb to be sketchy. This is used to say that something is not completely safe. So by saying that street's pretty sketchy, I am saying that street doesn't look completely safe. I don't think that street is safe. So I'm saying we shouldn't go down that street. We should avoid that street. Now, why would I say this street is sketchy? This is an adjective that native speakers use a lot. If I say a street's sketchy, it's most likely because it's dark or lacks lighting. There aren't a lot of people around. There's broken glass or broken windows. Or there are a lot of abandoned buildings on that street. It could be all of those reasons, or it could be just one of those reasons for me to say that street doesn't look safe. That street's pretty sketchy. I could say, let's take another street. This one looks sketchy. So I can also use the verb look sketchy, but I have to conjugate it. This street looks sketchy. Or let's say your friend or your husband or your wife came to you and said, hey, I heard this amazing business proposal today. All we need to do is invest $1,000 and we're guaranteed $100,000. And you could say, that sounds sketchy. So notice here the verb is to sound sketchy. And you're saying the idea, the plan, the business proposal doesn't sound completely safe. We also use this to describe people. He's a sketchy guy, or he's sketchy, she's sketchy. In this case, you're saying the person isn't safe, which means you can't trust the person. So with people, it's a way of saying, I don't think I can trust him. She's sketchy, he's sketchy.
Seems a little sketchy.
You're kind of sketchy.
Laundry to some sketchy laundromat?
Let's try another listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. You must have seen it. You must have seen it. You must have seen it. Did you get this one? You must have seen it. But notice, I didn't actually say have. I reduced that entirely to just You musta. You musta. I could also reduce it to more of an of sound, which is very commonly done by native speakers. You must have. You must have. You must have seen it. Notice for seen it, I use that that N sound to connect the 2 words together. Seen it. Seen it. Seen it. So you hear a N in front of it. It sounds like knit. But if you say those 2 words together, it blends together. Seen it. Seen it. You must have seen it. Now let's talk about the grammar of this. Must is a modal verb, and grammatically you need must plus base verb, which is the verb without to. So grammatically you need must have. In written English, you must use must have seen it, because that's grammatically correct. But in spoken English, it will sound like must a or must of. But in written English, if you wrote you must a or of, it would be incorrect grammatically. So just remember what I'm explaining is for spoken English.
You must have seen it 200 times.
You must have seen it too, Clark.
You must have seen them here.
Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. What's the ETA? What's the ETA? What's the ETA? I said, what's the ETA? Of course, we have what's. That's a contraction of what is. What's. What's the. Now, because ETA, it begins with a vowel sound, E, I could say either the or the, because we do a more stressed the when the next word starts in a vowel, but this isn't a rule that native speakers follow all the time. But if I did a more stressed E in the, it would really blend together with ETA, the TA, and it would almost sound like it's just one word, the TA, because I wouldn't really repeat the E on ETA, the TA. I believe in my example when I did the listening test, I think the first time I did it more of the ETA, and the second time I did it more of the ETA, and the sounds blended together. Let's listen to that again and see what I did. What's the ETA? What's the ETA? What's the ETA? Now, ultimately, either way that you pronounce it, the ETA or the ETA, is fine. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what's ETA? This stands for estimated time of arrival. So your ETA, the ETA, or someone, something's ETA is the estimated time of arrival for that someone or something, when it's expected to arrive. So let's say we're talking about a project and your boss wants to know when this project will arrive in his inbox or on his desk. He could say, what's the ETA? And he could just say the if it's obvious you're talking about the project. He could say, what's your ETA? Because you're the one submitting the project. Or he could say, what's the project's ETA? So the ETA belongs to the project, so you need that possessive. What's the project's ETA? And they all have the same meaning. We commonly use this with friends or coworkers, family members, to let them know when we're going to arrive. So let's say you were supposed to be at your family's house at 7 o'clock for dinner, but you're running late. You could send them a text message and say, running late. Google says my ETA is 6:42 or 15 minutes. Now, Google says, because when you put something in a GPS, Google will tell you, or whatever you use, Google will tell you when you're expected to arrive. That's your ETA.
What's their ETA?
Okay, ETA?
ETA, 11 minutes.
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice your pronunciation as well. So I'm going to say each sentence again, and then I want you to repeat the sentence out loud and try to imitate my pronunciation as closely as possible. And I'll say each sentence 3 times. Let's do that right now. They've been bickering all day. They've been bickering all day. They've been bickering all day. That street's pretty sketchy. That street's pretty sketchy. That street's pretty sketchy. You must have seen it. You must have seen it. You must have seen it. What's the ETA? What's the ETA? What's the ETA? Amazing job. Now let's complete another listening exercise. Maybe I'm just in a rut. Maybe I'm just in a rut. Maybe I'm just in a rut. Did you get this one? I said, maybe I'm just in a rut. Of course, I'm is a contraction. I am, I'm. And notice how in-a sounds like one word. In-a. I'm in a rut. In a rut. The expression here is to be in a rut. Now, you can also say to be stuck in a rut. Stuck is optional. When you're in a rut, it means you've been doing an activity like your job or a hobby or a task. You've been doing it too long and you feel like you need to change.
Why are you in a rut?
Same thing every day, knowing exactly what to expect. That's a rut.
So let's say every day you work all day, you eat dinner, but then at night, every night you watch Netflix. That could be your rut. We watch Netflix every night. We're stuck in a rut. We're in a rut.
Are we in a rut?
So to help you get out of that rut, you just need to do something different. So you might say, let's go to the park tonight. So instead of watching Netflix, you go to the park, you enjoy the beautiful day to help you get out of your rut.
You're a writer. Ruts are normal.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. My boss is stuck in his ways. My boss is stuck in his ways. My boss is stuck in his ways. How'd you do with this one? I said, my boss is stuck in his ways. Notice how boss is, we say it as one word, bosses, bosses. It's the exact same pronunciation as the plural form of the noun bosses. I have 2 bosses. But here with the verb to be, my boss is stuck in his ways, it's the exact same pronunciation. The expression to be stuck in one's ways. Notice ways is plural and it's one, possessive. My boss is stuck in his ways. This is when someone is unwilling to change how they do things or how they think about things.
Kind of stuck in his ways.
For example, my boss won't let me work remotely. He's stuck in his ways.
Because he's too stuck in his ways, Gloria. This is good for him.
So he has a specific way of thinking about how work should be done, and he's unwilling to change his thinking. Now, the same expression can also use the verb set, to be stuck or to be set in one's ways, and it has the exact same meaning.
Oh, you're young. Me, I'm set in my ways.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. Need a hand? Need a hand? Need a hand? This one was easy, right? I said need a hand. And notice need a sounded like one word, need a. Need a hand?
Need a hand?
Grammatically, this is missing the auxiliary verb and the subject. Do you need a hand? But native speakers commonly drop that and just say, need a hand? And this is the same as saying, need any help? Do you need any help? Exactly the same meaning. Now, to answer and to accept that help, you could say, sure, I could use a hand. And this is the same as, sure, I could use some help.
Hey, tomorrow I could really use a hand in here.
And if you want to request the assistance using this expression, you can say, can you give me a hand? Can you give me a hand? And this is the same as, can you help me? Can you help me?
Hey, Rach, can you give me a hand with this box?
And you can give me a hand right now by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and sharing this video with your friends. That would really give me a hand. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. How can I get my foot in the door? How can I get my foot in the door? How can I get my foot in the door? Did you get this one? I said, how can I get my foot in the door? Do you know this expression? To get one's or a foot in the door. This is used when you join an organization, a company, you take a specific job that's at a low level, but you're doing that because you hope that low level will turn into a higher position. That's getting your foot in the door.
You've already got a foot in the door.
For example, I'm a journalist, but I took a job as a receptionist to get my foot in the door.
I was just trying to get one foot in the door.
But you have to be careful with this strategy because you don't want to say, I took this job 5 years ago to get my foot in the door, but now I'm stuck in a rut. That would mean that you're still a receptionist 5 years later, so you haven't moved up. So your strategy of taking a lower position to get your foot in the door hasn't been very successful. Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice your pronunciation. I'll say each sentence again, and I want you to repeat the sentence out loud. Let's do that now. Maybe I'm just in a rut. Maybe I'm just in a rut. Maybe I'm just in a rut. My boss is stuck in his ways. My boss is stuck in his ways. My boss is stuck in his ways. Need a hand? Need a hand? Need a hand? How can I get my foot in the door? How can I get my foot in the door? How can I get my foot in the door? Did you enjoy this lesson? Do you want me to make more lessons just like this? If you do, then put foot in the door, put foot in the door in the comments so I know you enjoyed this lesson. And remember, you can give me a hand by liking this video, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And expanding your vocabulary is such an important part of improving your listening skills. But I have this video where you can learn lots more natural expressions to help you improve your listening. So I recommend you watch this lesson right now.